I think we're live. We always announce that. We announce that we are live. At least I do.
Okay.
Hi, Jason.
Hi.
Welcome. I'm just going to make sure that we are live on YouTube. And I don't see my... I see people in the chat. I'm just making sure because it hasn't come up. Oh, yes, we are live. It's a little bit of a delay, but I watch on my phone. I watch on my phone the live, and then I see comments in there different than I see. Can you see the comments on your end?
I can.
Perfect. All these lovely people are here to see you.
Hello.
Thank you all for being here to join me in welcoming my guest, Jason. How do you actually say I'm going to actually say your last name, how I actually say it, and then you can tell me if I'm wrong or right. Tempinski?
You're right.
I am?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, call me psychic. It's amazing. I'm so happy to have you here. We've been talking about this for a little bit, and we have some surprise announcements to say that we're going to share near the end of our conversation, and we're going to have time for some questions. And I know you had posted something on I think it was on your Facebook, and you said something about the first time. And I'm like, this is going to be the first time of many, because I'm not kidding. These people are going to, all of this beautiful chat family and friends, they are so interested in so much of the conversations that you and I have had. And so I'm just so excited to share with everybody. So thank you, Jason, for saying yes to coming on my YouTube channel. So exciting.
This is my first time.
Of many, it's going to be a series. It's going to be a mini series, and people are going to be like, when is Jason coming back on? Yeah, so we will go there. So thank you, and thanks everybody for being here. I did put Jason's YouTube channel in the chat, so be sure to subscribe to his YouTube channel, and I've put all your info, all your contact info is in the chat and will be in the description, so that people will be able to find you if they feel called to do so. So that is that. We'll just ask that for right now, because as many of you know, this is still fairly new to me in the whole managing all of the questions and all of that. So we're going to have a bit of a conversation, and then there will be some time for some questions, but we will let you know when that is. And thank you for everybody who put so many questions in the community tab. The questions were amazing, and Jason and I had lots of conversation about it. And so our intention is that we will speak to everybody. And so, yeah. So Jason Tempinski, why don't you tell us who you are, what you do, where did you come from?
It's too early to share that.
I love it.
I'm Jason Topinski. I am a regressionist, past life regressionist, and sometimes future life regressionist. It just depends on where clients I meet with go. And that has been my passion and my unexpected calling that I started about 2 years ago. And it's been absolutely amazing. And I'm so happy to be doing it. It's just a lot of information, and it brought together a lot of what kind of I had always thought about as a kid and growing up. And then all my questions, or most of them, not all of them, have been answered. So truly exciting to be part of.
Mm. So with the regression, so under the framework of that, I'd love for you to share I don't know it as the QHHT, which is the quantum healing hypnosis therapy,
Hmm.
under Dolores Cannon. And so two things, I would love for you to talk about that. And then,
Hmm.
did you see, like, I mean, you kind of said this a little bit, but did you see yourself working as a regressionist? Like, when did you know that was like the direction you wanted to go?
I mean, I knew hypnosis was something that existed growing
Mhm.
up. I saw the stage shows where people would cluck like chickens, and you were never really sure if it was actors or if it was real, and people would be really embarrassed. And I mean, it wasn't ever something that I took really seriously. If it worked, it did, but it wasn't like I want to do that. And I went through. I used to be a teacher, and then I started taking a clinical mental health counseling class, and or actually programmed to become a counselor because I just really enjoyed helping people one on one.
Mhm.
And I came across a book by Dolores Cannon, and it was just curiosity. I grew up in Las Vegas near Area 51, and I had a cruel uncle that used to send me these hypnosis books where people had these really horrifying, like horrible experiences. So I grew up with a fear of aliens more than I did like a vampire or whatever else kids are scared of at night. Um, so Dolores had this book, The Custodians, and it sat in my Audible library for about 3 months or so. And I finally listened to it, and it was not what I expected. It was about extraterrestrials, but it was about other things, about source and lifetimes and why we're here. And it wasn't the typical, grab your kids and run away type
Mhm.
book. It was something much deeper. And so I just started reading more and more of her books. And meanwhile, I was doing my counseling program. And with counseling, I always had this kind of empty feeling about, we counsel people in, mental health and physical health, but when it comes to spiritual or, the deeper questions and who we really are, that's not discussed
Mhm.
in counseling. So it was this perfect timing of kind of filling that void. And after a couple books, I found out you could learn the technique, and I took a huge leap of faith, and I left my program and I started doing hypnosis, and it was the best decision I've
Wow.
made. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So you mentioned the other like the hypnosis where you're like, and I can relate. I actually was one of those people that clucked like a chicken. Actually, I was like a gorilla in the middle of an audience and being suggested to do these things that I would not have done. And so there's that, and that feels very entertainment driven. What's different about like the past life regression, the hypnosis that's involved in that under
Yeah.
the quantum healing? Yeah.
I mean, that level of hypnosis is legitimate. I mean, you can make suggestions to people, and I mean, it's the same type of, it works at the same level of hypnosis that people go for, you know, I don't want to eat cookies anymore, and they get that suggestion during a hypnosis session, and they don't eat cookies anymore. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. It's unfortunate that the stage shows are kind of what at least I did, and a lot of people I know think is,
Mhm.
embarrassing people. And so I think it, whether consciously or unconsciously, sets people up to either be skeptical of it or afraid of it. Like, I don't want someone, giving me weird thoughts, and, I act like a tomato every time someone clicks their fingers or
Right.
something. So,
Right.
but
Mhm.
QHHT, it's different in that it goes deeper. It goes to the deepest level of trance, which is the theta state. And
Mhm.
it's not some type of magical place. It's what we experience, naturally every morning when you first wake up, and also right before you fall asleep. So it's kind of that limbo land dream state. And it's important because this is where you can access past life memories. You can get in touch with your higher self, spirit guides. I mean, it's this place that has an abundance of opportunities for you to learn. And instead of, and working at this level, it's not so much about giving people suggestions to not want the cookies. It's understanding through past life regression, through talking with their higher selves, why they want those cookies. So it's
Right.
not putting a band-aid on it, it's understanding it. And once you understand that, that's where the healing and the growth can really begin.
Yeah, because I see in the comments, and thank you all for being here and saying hello. I see you all, and we're saying hello back to each and every one of you. And in that, it's like I had a question, but because my attention is the lovely chat family, I forgot what my question was. But if it's meant to be, it will come back. You know, is it for everybody? Because that's a thing. That's what it was. So it was, some of the comments are, you know, I've had this type of hypnosis therapy, or, you know, it really worked, or the other side, it didn't work for me. And so it's like, it made me think about, you know, and in hearing what you were sharing, the responsibility of the practitioner and how instrumental it is. Like, you know, it kind of parallels in the work that I do with the mediumship, where it's like, I'm only one part of the equation. Spirit is another part of the equation. And then the sitter is another part of the equation. And if one of those is a little bit off, if you will, that can change the the story significantly. So I like that you acknowledge the responsibility, you know, that goes into it, and that what it sounded like your intention is, or part of it is, to leave people not with a sense of like something's lacking, but just more of, I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's like reminding them that they already usually know the answer to it, because people are coming. And that's the thing. I would ask you, what are people coming to you for? Like, what are the commonalities, or, you know, just not even that, but what are people coming for?
I mean, the core of what at least QHHT is, and you know, I think any type of hypnosis should be, is for healing.
Right.
Which can be physical healing, it can be emotional healing. I mean, there's a lot more behind certain ailments and diseases, anxiety, depression, like mental health issues can originate whether from genetics, or it can come from things that have happened in this lifetime. But there are cases where, for some reason or another, you might have had a traumatic death in a past lifetime, that you have carried with you into this lifetime and don't know it. So, you know, I noticed some of the questions about people being afraid of water, or deathly afraid of water, or being afraid of boats, or all those fears that, you know, people share, sometimes can be attributed to, you know, multiple past lives, one past life, or it's equally possible that it's not connected to those things. But, you know, our mainstream counseling and everything else really only takes into consideration this lifetime here, but there's so much more than that. So that's why that's the crux of it. So looking for healing is what most people come to me for, and that's, you know, back pains, chronic illnesses, thyroid issues. The list goes on. And the amazing thing is that the healing occurs during the session. Dolores Cannon, who started this method, had instances where people would go in with crutches or back issues, and they leave without the crutches. And
Right.
I'll admit, when I first heard about that, I mean, I thought it sounded great, but it sounded a little too good to be true. Of why do we go to doctors if we could go to someone just to take us back to another life or speak with our higher self and our guides, and everything would be fine after that. And I have witnessed in sessions people's thyroids being healed, back pain being adjusted. Dolores even spoke about times that she had a client that had scoliosis, and she could actually hear the back being readjusted. So it's this really miraculous process that when it comes down to it, everything that occurs in these sessions is yourself. So it goes to prove that we have the power to heal ourselves. It's just a matter of knowing how to do it and how to tap into that.
Yeah. And then would you say there's an opportunity to identify what healing actually really looks like? You know what I mean? Because we hear it and it's something that we might have an understanding or not of, but I'm curious, there's two questions that they're saying to ask is one, what does healing look like to you? And then in this present day, in this moment, are aspects of healing actually changing? They're asking that, like, is healing actually changing? I don't know if you'll understand that question, and but yeah.
I mean, I think we're at a point now where things are changing, and I think that probably most of everyone that's here right now is somewhat aware of like the earth shift and vibrational changes, and things happen, and synchronicities and time speeding up. I mean, the list can go on and on and on. But with that comes kind of this, I don't know, people are realizing they've been starving for some type of spiritual guidance and looking for someone to ask questions and speak with. And that includes healing. People, I've had clients that have had lifelong skin conditions that their doctors were never able to diagnose. And I had one client who, her last life, she burned as a witch. And she carried that with her. And once she experienced that lifetime, which also had information for her for this life, but the healing started then, and the skin condition went away, and she had been on medications and different types of therapies and all this testing for almost all of her life, and it was gone, and it was incredible. I mean, even for me, and I know other QHHC practitioners and Dolores, or sometimes it's like it's just miraculous in what can be accomplished.
Yeah, because they're saying our ability as humans within our consciousness is expanding, and our ability to heal, we're removing some of the boundaries. So in that's a part of it. We're able to we're consciously evolving, and the going from different dimensions, and in that consciousness our ability to heal is expanding. So some of the parameters that we have put around it, they're being broken down. So and that's the thing, the measure of the healing. And this is some of the questions that I felt there was a bit of a theme in some of the questions where people had been told certain things about, let's just say, a past life, and it felt like I was feeling into the energy of them, and it was like I felt like it had I felt like it was a bit restrictive in that. So I'm just curious how you would speak to moving beyond some of the things that we're told, whether they're true or they're not, or I'm curious how, because I feel like that's a part of the healing, in that sometimes healing isn't going to look like if you're a paraplegic and you've lost the use of your legs, you might never walk again. You might never have that, but the healing can be more than just in the physicality. So I'm wondering if there's anything you would have to offer or suggest around people's when it just feels that restriction. Do you know what I'm talking about, in something perhaps that someone has told them?
Right. It's actually a complicated question to answer just because.
Just do it. In 3 minutes, you're like, no, I'm kidding. You take as much time. I
don't want to characterize the healing as solely something that has only to do with the past life.
Right.
Because there are numerous other factors, like the higher self, people's higher selves, guides, all acknowledge that genetics do play a role with it. So that can be one factor. Not the entire factor, but there are different aspects of the healing process that may not occur. So it's kind of not a guarantee, because we basically choose before we come into a lifetime what we're going to experience. And so what happens is that there are those spirits that want to, or souls that want to come to Earth, which is the most difficult school anywhere, which I think we can all understand why in some form or another. But incarnation is a way for us to learn. And so what you set out from the spirit side before you're born is what you will experience. And this can include certain diseases, physical conditions, physical challenges. I don't like to use the word disabled, but, experiencing a life that is challenging in one way or another that isn't typically, quote unquote, normal. So it can very well be, I've had instances where clients, higher selves, they really want to relieve some type of fibromyalgia, for example. And our higher selves, we would love to, but we can't do that because it's part of their plan. They're learning from this. And it's a learning experience, not just for that person, but it's also a learning experience for everyone else around them, because of how people react to, for example, a paraplegic or someone who has a terminal cancer, or, that type of interaction is all actually considered to be a gift. That Dolores always has said that the lines for a quote unquote disabled body is the longest, because you can learn so much more in one lifetime than 10 normal, easy, take the back seat type of lives where you don't have any worries or real struggles, which I don't think that even really exists, but that is kind of the core lesson. So with healing, that's always a factor. That is it something that you chose? And that's hard for some people to really digest, because they might have a terminal condition and it just sounds preposterous that I can't, there's no way I would have ever chosen this. But in reality, there could be the case where you chose it, and it's but what are you learning from it? What have you learned from it? And that's ultimately what it is. I mean, strength, perseverance, the list can go on and on if you see it from a learning perspective, which still, that's hard to see it that way. But in the bigger picture, there's a purpose and a reason for that.
Yeah. And perhaps as far as the human aspect of who we are, our inability to comprehend some of those things, and in the, in the bigger picture, like you said, having that clarity, and that in the human experience, in any given moment, we can have that shift in perspective. Always. And that's, none of us are separate from that. And yes, it's difficult. It can be very difficult. And that's not, not to judge it, but it is within our ability as humans, because that's what we're here for, to have a human experience after all. I love that. I have like 3,000 questions, and full transparency. I'm reading some of the comments, and people are loving it. And I told you guys, I was so excited to have this conversation, but it's like, there is so much, and I don't want to jump too far into many directions, unless that's where we're going to go. But because Jason is coming back, and I mean, I told him this, and he signed a contract. So just kidding.
Maybe I did. I don't know.
Totally. Anyways, so in the past life, focusing on that, what is the benefit of revisiting a past life, other than like it might just be fun or curiosity? But what are some of the benefits of actually doing it? And then in the duality of that, the opposite.
I mean, it really comes down to intention. I mean, if you want to explore, that's, you're more than welcome to. And there's probably modalities and, practitioners out there that will take you on a field trip to your past lives. But, there is basically an inherent value in having access and experiencing past lives. And the thing that's interesting about QHHT in particular is, as a practitioner, I work directly with the higher self. And so,
can I pause you there, Jason? Because I think that it's important. I wrote it down just before this, and you've referred to it like several times about the higher self. Could you actually just, could you, and I know this one, it's a stretch because it's so expansive, but just to kind of sum it up for me, when you say the higher self, what you're referring to, pretty please?
I think the best way to explain it is there's basically, there's 3 levels of memory. So we have this memory, the earth memory, where as far as we know, or, some of us might be remembering more, which is fantastic. This memory encompasses just this lifetime. Your higher self is still yourself. It's a higher aspect of yourself that knows all of your lifetimes. It knows all about you, your soul plans, your soul contract. It's you, but it has that memory of everything. And it has access to all unlimited knowledge. It can access information that necessarily doesn't have to do with you. That's pretty much the second level. Then the third level is obviously source. If you want to equate that with God or whatever type of entity or manifestation of source energy you want to connect with. And that is obviously memory, but everything. So the higher self is just that aspect of yourself that knows you often better than you know yourself. Well, it does know you better than you know yourself. It knows what you're thinking. It knows what you're doing. And kind of to connect back to what we manifest in our bodies, illness can also be a manifestation of where we're not following our contract and our path. So if we're, for example, not speaking our truth about a certain situation, or if we decided that we were going to be an architect in this life and we decided to turn it down and go in another direction and, I don't know, work in a fast food restaurant. I mean, we have choice, we have free will, and there's no such thing as good, bad, or a good or a bad choice. But if we're not following the plan we set out for ourselves, our higher self, our guides eventually manifest that in our body. So, and our body's a roadmap. So by understanding the body, that's another aspect of the healing process, which the higher self, even, after experiencing numerous sessions with clients, certain conditions and certain ailments have to do with, speaking truth. What are you not letting go of? What are you angry about? What anger are you carrying it? Where are you carrying it? It's all spiritual guidance, but we've been taught to think of it only in physical terms. So that's kind of the higher self in a very small nutshell.
Yeah. And then if we could go back to where I interrupted you, apologies. But no. I love that. I'm back to like the benefits of revisiting past life.
Yeah. So I mean, that's good to talking about the higher self, because part of it is that at least the QHHT hypnosis, that there's a plan in place for you. So even before making an appointment with a practitioner or going down that road and that journey, which I'll say probably your higher self is leading you to do that in the first place, there's already a plan in place of what you're going to see, where you're going to go. And it's because there are elements of that particular lifetime that you will go to that has to do with what you're going through right now. So the value is in visiting these lifetimes, we can remember or learn more about ourselves, even if we aren't aware of it in this life. So an example would be, I had a client who went back into a lifetime where she basically went to a life probably early or late 1800s, early 1900s in the U.S., Virginia, when TB was breaking out, and she called it the consumption, and they were trying to get away from it, and sold all the things and moved west, and she jumped forward, ended up deserted by herself alone on this farm in the middle of a drought, and died of starvation. And it was a horrible emotional experience as a practitioner to actually be there with a person dying of thirst. But the lesson, surprisingly, according to her higher self, is that the mother she had in that lifetime and the husband that she had in a lifetime, who both died of the consumption, she had a genuine, pure love, and she knew the meaning of love and what that is. And in this current life, she's been having issues finding, people who really understand her and not returning her good intentions and her loving intentions. And this lifetime was a lesson for her to know that she does know what love is, because she pretty much died to get it. So that's kind of an example of the value that even if it could have been the most horrible lifetimes, there may be small bits of it that you as a person having a session would really resonate with.
Wow. We got a lot of comments and people inquiring about, it felt like they had these memories or these knowings of aspects, whether they had come to that themselves or partly by, in other, from other people mentioning it. And in that, it just brought me to, kind of the why or the drive or the call around why some of us will really try to identify and validate and confirm these aspects of past life, and how, is there times when that could not be helpful because my guides are like, I was sharing that with you this morning, I think, Jason, about, my curiosity around it is definitely, I'm curious about it, but there's areas that I don't go quite as deep into. And so in that, sometimes for me, and I'll just speak for myself and what my guides kind of say, like, I don't need to go that deep into certain aspects of it because of, for me, it could be too much. So is there areas, where people can kind of go too, do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, is there any, I don't want to say warning feels, but do you know what I'm saying without asking? Can you help me here?
No, I get it. I mean, there are people who, like I said before, come to the realization, and more so now in present day, that have realized that they have been asleep for a very long time. And now, different aspects of spirituality are becoming more mainstream. Science is becoming, with quantum physics and all the experimentation, it's turning back to mysticism as kind of the founding point of everything. There is this absolute need and drive to, for example, find out your past lives or find out, answers to these burning questions. And it's really important to, in those moments, consider why you want to do that work. I've had clients who have come in that were absolutely 100% positively convinced that they had a life in Egypt, or 100 absolutely percent, 100 absolute percent. Is that what? Yeah.
That's wow. That is absolute.
It's where it could be that someone told them about it, a psychic told them about it. But we're at a point now where, to be honest, the higher selves, it's like we don't have time for that anymore. We're at this pivotal moment where, in fact, past lives aren't as important as they are anymore, because we're going through this transition where many of us are going to start leaving the wheel of karma and possibly having our graduation from the Earth School. I mean, there's a lot of things going on right now, but it's not to say that, finding out past lifetimes isn't fun and exciting. But the thing that is the most crucial point is our higher selves are very protective, and they know what we need, and they know what we should know and what we shouldn't know. And it's also a matter of that they are not, or I call them they, it could be, multiple guides or however you think of it. They are very protective, and they do not and cannot actually interfere in our life plan and in our contract. So the fact that, you choose a particular disease and they can't interfere and heal it applies to all aspects of your life. So while you may have this really great, strong connection, or someone told you that you were Cleopatra, which could very well be the case, there could be aspects of that you are not supposed to remember, or you're not supposed to know, because it could dramatically impact what you do here and now, because this lifetime that we're in at this present moment is the most important lifetime of all. And so I've had clients who are 75, 76 years old, and they want to, experience a past life to just see what they've been through. And they go back to this lifetime as a child and as a teenager and see all these different scenes from this life. And every time as that happens, I ask their higher self, I ask them, why have you taken them back to this life? And they'll always say, she can play around all she wants and go visit all these other places. She doesn't have a lot of time left here, and she needs to focus right now.
Focus.
Yeah.
I love that.
So it's like, there's, especially, when you're older and you haven't accomplished what you set out to accomplish in this life, tinkering around and taking field trips to, I don't know, Costa Rica and Hawaii in your past life isn't going to help you right now. So, I mean, that's one of the things with QHHT, for example, is it's a very focused, purposeful journey with your higher self that isn't meant to satisfy your curiosity, but use that resource as a way to help you with this life. So I don't know if that answers your question.
And then some. Yeah, it's wonderful. And I'm just saying hello to the people that are joining us. Welcome to everybody. And for those of you that are not familiar with my guest, his name is Jason, and he is a QHHT, quantum healing hypnosis therapist. And he does a whole bunch of other things, and maybe we'll get there. This is just so fascinating, the past life. And there's questions about like reincarnation and future life and those kind of things. So there's so much. Which he's going to be back. He's going to be back probably next week. I don't know what your schedule is like, not to put you on the spot, but because that was funny. You answered when I was reading the question about, people can have such particular interest about like people and places and culture and all of those things? And does it mean that they have lived in that past life or not? And I think you answered that. So it's amazing.
That's, I mean, I should say it's not to, put out fantasy. I mean, that's not really what I was trying to say. I mean, I've learned through what I practice is that a lot of the times the questions that you come up with come from somewhere. And so the question is, if you think, or if you feel a draw or a pull, or if you have this really vivid dream with extreme detail of being someone in another place in another time, there's probably a really good chance that it could be a memory of a past life. But the only one who can answer whether it is or not is actually yourself.
Yeah. Would you go as far as saying we always have the answer?
We always have the answer.
Yeah.
And I've seen it with clients. They'll have questions about, how do I lose weight, or what do I need to eat? Are there foods I shouldn't eat? Should I take this job? Should I leave my husband? Should I do this? Should I do that? And 9 times out of 10, the higher self, they just sit there, well, not really sit there, float there and say, she knows this. She already knows. She's just not doing it. She's putting it off by asking the question rather than taking action.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing, is we're able to take in areas we can take that responsibility, and it is, there is action around it, and it doesn't mean that it's easy, but it's within us to, whether we do or we don't. And it's interesting to me. What about parallel and future lives?
So now that we've talked about past lives, I'm going to flip it a little bit. Because in the whole reality of everything's happening at the same time. So we call it past lives, but it's because we perceive it to be such. But in reality, you were, a clockmaker in Vienna in the 1700s. He's right next door. I mean, it's all these people and all these existences you have are occurring at the same time. So to call something a past life or a future life, it's all the same. And so, I mean, we conceive of it that way, but in reality, it's all happening at the same time, which is hard to grasp a little bit. But so parallel lives actually could mean you're having a parallel lifetime depending on our choices. So some of you might have heard the idea that there's a million yous out there and all these different universes, which is completely the case because we split off from ourselves every time we make a particular decision. So there are.
Oh my gosh! I just have to pause. I just have to tell you this. I just read the question of Phoebe Coombs, and then she just put in there. This is tripping me out. Like I was going to actually announce or say, like, because she had asked a question about, like just time being linear and this whole concept of time, and I was going to acknowledge that, and then I see her in the chat. Anyways, I just. I just love that stuff. I saw that we were at 222 people in the chat. So it was like all of these things are happening at the same time. And that's just Spirit's way of like that's the demonstration of it. You know what I mean? They're always doing that and providing us. And I'm so sorry that I cut you off because it's so brilliant. But my attention span and my memory is like this. And so if I don't put it out, I'll be like, what was I going to say? But yes, Jason. Yes. Carry on.
So yes, there's many uses everywhere. But parallel lives can also mean other things. So sometimes when we sleep, we have another job that we don't we're not aware of. It could be here. It could be, you know, another mission that we have outside of our waking life, if you want to call it that. Then that is simultaneous lifetimes. So you could be energy traveling and spreading love throughout the earth or throughout the galaxy. I mean, the possibilities, I've heard it said that everything that's possible is anything you can imagine. So it's if you can imagine it, yes, you can. Is pretty much the thing. So
right.
Yeah. So that's a parallel lives. Future lives is complicated a little bit because every decision we make changes the timeline. So I'm sure some of you were watching this, or, you know, we were on a particular timeline where it was going to be the end of the world and it was going to be disastrous and earth shifts and all that. But for example, what Nostradamus wrote about, but we've managed to jump onto another timeline and avoid that. So while I've only had one client actually go into the future, I'll say it was my mother, which is pretty surprising. But it was very, very cool and interesting, and confirmed a lot of what like Dolores Cannon has talked about in her books, and what I've learned from other sessions. So again, that's kind of why it was weird coming from my mother. But her higher self basically said, because when I would ask her these things, like what, you know, how long ago did such and such happen? You know, she was far in the future, and she was researching on the earth after it had been destroyed. And that's not to scare anyone. That's a different timeline. It's not going to,
right.
It's not the case. But I tried to ask her, I said, how long ago did this happen? And was it in the past? And she would get all confused. And it was because it was a point where we had moved past conceiving of time like we do now, which is kind of hard to explain. But she actually said to me, as this being on this planet, you know, I don't understand past and future. So it was the future, but it wasn't in a way. And so, but the whole thing was, the purpose was to show her that she had certain abilities and gifts. And also, I don't know how many people are aware of this, but human beings are the only beings in everything that experience emotion. We're here to learn about emotions. And my mom classically suppresses all of her emotions, and this being in this future life didn't feel emotion. I asked, you know, after her mission was complete, you know, are you happy? Is it, you know, you brought the earth back to life? Is it everything fantastic? And she said, I'm content. And then I asked her, you know, what happened? She was like, I go back to source. I'm done. I don't have anything else to do here. So it was very anticlimactic, but it was a lesson for my mom to learn that she's here to experience emotion, and she's not doing anyone, including herself, any good by holding it all in.
Yeah. I love that. And the parallel in the work that I do is that, you know, people need to be reminded that spirit doesn't sit in the, you know, in the emotions that they had here on the, you know, in their earth experience. And so, you know, they're not in the regret and the upset and the sadness and the sorrow and all of this. They don't even actually, I know this is a hard one, but they don't even miss us because they are still, you know, they're still here, you know, and sometimes that could be like, when they first started telling me that, I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, I was like, I'm sure, but just to your point. And so it was interesting because they made me write down a question, and it was around the emotional part. So what does the higher self say about fear? Because I know none of us are separate in our human experience from fear. And even in some of the questions, as I sat with every single question that was asked from the chat before we went live, and just some of it felt like I could sense the fear around it. So I would love for you to share what you get around the higher self and fear specifically.
The interesting thing is that from the higher self perspective, outside of our own conception of everything that goes on here, there should be no illness, no disease. Our body is perfect. It's meant to live thousands of years, but it's our beliefs and our collective beliefs. For example, I'm 70 years old, I'm 80 years old, I'm going to die soon. We have this unconscious collective belief that things are certain way that they are, and it makes them manifest and become what they are. This is the same with fear. And if anything, on many occasions, I've asked, because I've been so curious, any clients that are just almost crippled, literally and sometimes physically crippled by fear, what is it? And they've said it's the only real, true disease on the earth. Meaning that it's created, it's contagious, it's not good for our health, and it's the only thing that holds us back from everything that we could possibly want to do and achieve. And so living fear is actually a denial of who we are as spiritual beings. And it's denial of our infinite possibilities. And in a way, I mean, they don't say it, but the energy is almost like, why do you let fear overtake your life? Is what the biggest thing is. And all the negative emotions that we experience, whether it be anger, whether it be jealousy, hatred, sadness, or, grief, all these emotions come out of the fear of loss, the fear of being judged, the fear of someone taking advantage of me, or the fear of not being good enough. It's all these limiting beliefs. Everything is reduced to fear. And fear actually is what causes all of our illnesses, all of our physical conditions. I mean, if you look at past lives and fear of water, I mean, it's all these mixes of just fear in different forms that we don't realize we're afraid of something. And that comes back, and fear and control also go hand in hand. And so if you keep someone living in fear, you have complete control over them and their beliefs. And so that's why, how it's been explained to me, why fear is a disease.
I love it. I'm just going to write a little. Are you open to some questions?
Absolutely.
I'm going to past lives and be in. So if I'll put this up, save. If you have questions around kind of the conversation that we've been having, and you can see we could go in a trillion. I feel like Jason is one of those people that is in is like the human Akashic records. That's like, and his thoughts around, and his like ideas, and then his like connection. It's something that I'm just in awe of, as I'm sure many of you are. So just, if we could keep it around, because he will come back. Don't you worry. But
maybe. I'm kidding.
If we could keep it around kind of the conversation that we've been having, and then we can, because I've got other pages of all these brilliant topics, but keeping it in the past life and reincarnation, if there's questions around that, I'd be curious what people, and Yeah, Jason, and here's the thing, like you get a lot of people that are asking, did I have did this occur? Did I have this past life? Like did I what 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 would you say about that? Because I'm sure that'll be lots of the questions. That is like, did I looking for whether it be the confirmation or validation? What are your thoughts around that?
I would just encourage everyone who has, questions just in general. It's like take a moment and really think about what the deeper question is before you satisfy or try to satisfy that curiosity. So, for example, there are, and I'll actually use myself as a case. In my session, when I went into hypnosis, I didn't see a past life. And I just saw energy and I didn't really go anywhere and I didn't see a past life. And it was kind of, my conscious mind was still there thinking, okay, is this not working? What's going on? But then it ended up was I overthink. I do it, even though I work with hypnosis, I am my thoughts overtake me sometimes, and my higher self is like, we're not going to show him a lifetime because he's going to think about it too much and it's going to affect what he's doing now. So it was more of a, you will be shown what you need to know at the particular time that's appropriate. But the question is are you wanting to seek out past lives in order to find meaning in this life? I wouldn't recommend doing that because, again, this life is the most important. You've made out a game plan for yourself. You're living it out. And if you get lost in who am I, who was I, what did I do, did I kill somebody, you're obviously not living in this life. You're trying to live through other lifetimes that are not your own. So I guess that would be kind of the motivating question is, why are you asking the question? If I think it'd be better, to frame it or to think of it as, what past lives could I learn from in order to help me the best right now, right here, with my challenges and what I'm experiencing.
And I think that's key because it's like, and that's the thing, we read every single question in the community board and here with a lot of people just wanting that connection around, a specific remembering of a specific past life. And the likelihood is, like you said, it's like, we already know the answer. And then will it be helpful in this lifetime or not is sometimes whether we get the answer to it or not. And it's like, here's the thing, and the Spirit tells us this all the time, is that we're never going to miss what we're supposed to get. So it's not a matter of not being seen in it or like heard or the question, not being answered. It's like we're never going to miss it. Yeah, so I'm trying to start.
Yeah.
That's probably, I will say that the questions will be closed because we do have a lot of them. We won't get to everyone. And that's the thing. We tried to look at this in a way that, because there was so many people looking for, did I have this past life? And to just, go into it, I recognized, and I didn't fully know this, it could take a full, 5-hour past life regression session. You know what I mean? To actually have that experience. So for Jason to be, like, yes, you did, or no, you didn't, or me to even, connect with Spirit and have that, it's not as simple as that recognition. And so we also wanted, it looks different, and different practitioners will do it in very different ways. What I love about Jason is that the ethic and the integrity around it is a very, very high bar. And so I love that about him. And so I will put a few of the questions. I will say that the questions will be closed. So thank you for... Dun, dun, dun.
But I will say, if you have these burning questions, the only person, and I think I said this at the beginning, is you have the answers within you. So it's not, I would be skeptical even if I knew a person was, 100% able to read my past lives. Even if they were able to connect and see that you are a particular person, the question is they're looking through it through their eyes. So there might be cases, for example, of, several people being in the same lifetime, but their perspective and the experiences of it and what they pick up on and what they don't is completely different from what may have any value and meaning to you. I've had clients who, they went to, Dolores called them the picking potato life, where nothing happens. It's a farmer, he's plowing his fields, and as a practitioner, I'm thinking, okay, this is interesting. Not, but something either happens or something that I don't pick up on happens, and the client goes back and listens to the recording and they're like, oh my God, that little, I don't know, picture frame that was sitting on my table had a picture of my wife now. I mean, it or those little intricate things are what will have meaning to you. So having someone else tell you about your past lives isn't doing you a service, because they don't know what you experienced and what would be meaningful to you.
I love it. Okay, we got a question from Terry Renner at Holding Your Space. And if you haven't signed up for her or subscribe to her channel, she has a newer channel. So please, anybody that has channels, please feel free to put it in the chat anytime. It goes without saying, for sure. And can you speak about walk-ins?
Yes. So now we're moving into past life and reincarnation 2.0.
Yeah.
Walk-ins. So walk-ins. So I'll say, okay, I'll explain some things. So past lives, most of us have them. Most of them have, some of us have a few, some of us have many. There are people here now that have never had a life on Earth before. And yet, we all have memories of past lives. So in reality, and I don't want to use reality as reality, but in reality, when we come into a lifetime, we have access to, and I think I saw Akashic Records kind of scroll by. Someone asked me a question about that. The Akashic Records store everything, all knowledge of all lifetimes that have been lived in one place. And so this is one resource that, for example, if we're planning a life where and this is a really simplistic version, but we're planning a life where we want to be we're going to be a powerful politician, we can walk on over, again, simplistic, we can walk on over and pick out a life of some powerful, influential politician and have memories of being that politician. So while we might have past lives, there's no real way to know if we actually had that life or not, because it could very well be, and this also explains why skeptics say, oh, everybody says they're Cleopatra in a past life. Well, it could be that they're all accessing her memories of that person who actually lived that life. So that's kind of the segue into walk-ins. So walk-ins are basically when you make an agreement with another spirit on the other side to come in and finish up your life for you. I mean, that's the simplest way. So, which is actually not that uncommon. I mean, you don't you don't have any conception of any change within you How that exactly works in the finer details, I don't know that, but
Mm.
it's pretty seamless. But it also explains why sometimes people don't remember their childhood. I mean, granted, there can be horrible, horrific things that happen to them, but maybe you can only remember up to 3 or 5 years old.
Mm.
Sometimes can be explained by your original spirit that you was inhabiting your body decided, hey, this is way too much. I didn't sign up for this. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm going back. Can someone please help me out here? It's like the exit plan.
Mhm.
And it's, but it's much more deeper and intricate than that. It's not a
Right.
matter of we can sit here now and, you had a really bad day and say, oh, please come and save me. Let me go. It's not really how it works. It's much more intricate and meaningful and a definite purpose behind it. Because honestly, when we're coming to the earth, we're all gung ho and really, really ambitious because we want to learn as much as we can so we don't have to come back again. And sometimes I've had the higher self say it's like putting marbles in a jar. Like, I'm going to go through this. I'm going to be broke. I'm going to be homeless. I'm going to be in a wheelchair. I'm going to have these diseases. My mom's going to be an alcoholic. My dad's going to be, verbally and physically abusive. I'm going to put all this in my jar and poof, I'll learn all this stuff. And then you get here, possibly never having been here on the earth. And it's like, I had no idea. So that's kind of the basic understanding of walk-ins. And again, it's not something where it's noticeable. There are times when, I haven't had a session where it's been clear to me if there was a walk-in, but I know Dolores had a session where I think it was Dolores, but there was a practitioner who had a higher self that shared that the client, there was a switch when she was like 16, that her original spirit had enough. It was not able to take all of the noise of being on the earth, and another spirit walked in to take over and finish out the life. And no one really noticed. I mean, she said that after learning about this, she asked her parents if, when she was a teenager, if there was any changes, and her mom actually said, there was a point when she kind of got a little bit lighter, and she wasn't so down and depressed all the time, and she, it was kind of a switch in that way, but we just thought it was part of her getting, maturing.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the simplistic concept of
It's very
walking.
simple. Just kidding. That was sarcasm. Wow. No, it's good. It's good. So this is just coming to me because I feel I'm just being sensitive to some of the questions that were asked, and then just, let me be really transparent. Because I don't have this ability in an instant to recognize someone's past life or not. And I don't do past life regression work. So, and in your experience, Jason, can you just from a question answer someone yes or no, or is it what I'm getting is it's more of a session and a process? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's particular ability. I mean, we all have gifts. We
Yeah.
all have, the gifts and abilities. It's all within us. It's whether or not we accept them. We don't fear them. We
Mhm.
practice and we hone them. I mean, like I said in the beginning, anything is possible. If you can imagine it, you can do it. But I think that in the history of everything and my knowledge of what has occurred, those abilities were shut off for a reason long
Mm.
ago. And, people used it to their advantage or out of selfishness and greed. And now that
Mhm.
they're slowly being turned back and given back to us, which also explains why so many of us are more aware and more awake to everything that's going on and looking at past lives and what that means. Um, uh, in my sense is that being able to read past lives of other people or know who they were in present lifetimes could really complicate things. Particularly, for example, there are cases, Julia Cannon, Dolores Cannon's daughter, shared this, so I think it's okay for me to share. But when Julia, Dolores' daughter, was first taken, or one of the times she was taken under hypnosis, she had always, before that, she'd always felt this weird draw to San Francisco. Like she felt like she had been there before, which probably speaks to some of you who are watching that, you feel a draw to a certain place, but you just can't explain it, and things seem so familiar to you. Well, this was a case where Julia went back to San Francisco, and I think it was the early 1900s. She was a reporter, and the place that she felt so connected with used to be a newspaper, like she was a journalist. And during that time, there had been a rise in a serial killer and who was attacking women in the area of San Francisco. And long story short, it ended up that Julia was murdered by the serial killer. There are other women who are also murdered. And after the session, or towards the end of the hypnosis, when Dolores was asking Julia's higher self about that lifetime, the higher self actually divulged that Julia's biological brother was the murderer in that lifetime. And her brother's wife in this lifetime was also one of his victims in that lifetime. And his karmic balance that needed to be put into place, he had to live out a life with a sister and a wife who were his victims. Granted, this information was told to Julia and Dolores, which I think that they would be able to handle that. But if someone walked up to you and said, "Hey, your son, murdered you in a past life," it would dramatically impact your relationship, knowing that, your little son is your son, but he was also the person who murdered you in your past life. It's, again, this lifetime is the most important. So for someone to be able to tell you flat out 100% that you were this person or you did this could affect you in ways that take you off track.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's the answer to some of the questions that we got, where it's like, it's our higher self and that intelligence, if you will, that is, it's protecting us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that, because it can be really detrimental in some areas. And that's, I think that's the one absolute, is that there's a duality in everything. And so it's not, it's not meant for all of us. And even in the inquiry of it, sometimes not getting the answer is actually, yes, it's frustrating in that, but it's like, I think that it can be very protecting. This question too caught my eye about, is it possible to merge with your higher self on this earth? Great question.
I'm going to say yes, but it's very rare. I could say, gifted the opportunity to have a client who it was revealed that she, and even when I was having an interview with her, she was very, very aware of her past lives and what had happened. She was very, very aware of, who her daughter was throughout all these lifetimes. She was aware of who in her family she had shared previous lifetimes with. So it was pretty, I was kind of questioning, like, well, why are you coming for regression? If you already know this information. But it was just because she, some spots weren't really clear to her, and she just wanted to understand, more about it. So when her higher self came through, it was a very different experience in that I asked, to speak to his client's higher self, and there was a pause, and then the higher self said, well, there is no Joan, there's no higher self. I am.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this, and even the energy in the room, just like I'm getting chills right now. It was just
Mm.
this immense shift of, I can't explain it, but it was just this, and it was revealed there's no distinction between her and her higher self. She isn't completely her higher self, because that would be kind of giving, we are here to learn a lesson, so we don't remember everything and have access to everything. But it was made very clear that she's connected. She is almost one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
So it is possible. And I would say that even, ascended masters, Buddha, all of the, iconic, enlightened, ascended masters of this world, that, I mean, would be ultimate enlightenment and becoming one with your higher self. And anything
Wow.
is possible. Anything's
Yeah.
possible.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. Um, so if people are interested in working with you, if they feel called to work with you, you are in Colorado, yeah? I was going to
Yeah.
say the city, but I don't know. Like, yeah. Tell people kind of where you are, what that would look like.
For those of you who are familiar with QHHT or are not at all, it's important to note that sessions with QHHT can only be done in person.
Mm.
That's really important. It's a rule that some people choose to ignore, um, and it is very unethical. So I don't recommend practitioners who do it online or over the phone. They have to be done in person, because part of our jobs as practitioners is to pay attention to cues. And also, if you go into a lifetime where you're experiencing something traumatic, we're trained in how to work you out of that. And if you're having a session online and the power goes out and you're burning as a witch on a stake, it wouldn't be a very pleasant experience for you.
Mm-hmm.
And could be, I don't even know what would happen. So with that, I only see people in person. So
Mm-hmm.
I realize not everyone lives in Colorado and everything else, but if you think that a QHHT session is something that you would pursue, as practitioners, we always support one another. So there is a website, the QHHT official website, that you can search by area for practitioners. If you've been there before and haven't had any luck finding a practitioner, they are going through a process of kind of weeding out inactive practitioners. So, finding dead ends in your search should no longer be an issue. I do, however, practice online. It's kind of like it's not a QHHT session, but it focused solely on your physical wellness and learning how to listen to your higher self and your body, because your body is wholly conscious. You are able to communicate with it. It does give you messages in the form of illness. Um, it's it's called the Soul Body Wellness Session, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a matter of you coming with current ailments and kind of discussing, what those might mean. Tapping into, there's a meditation that you learn in order to be able to prevent illness in the future. Or if you feel something coming on, it teaches you to sit and communicate with your body. And also, we walk through parts of your life, for example, major events or accidents, or when certain issues arise in your life or certain illnesses arise, and really dissecting where you are off track.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said earlier, you know, our body, our higher self, communicates with us in the form of disease and pain and illness, in order to say, hey, wake up, you're not listening to us. You're going to be experiencing this pain until you sit down and figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's always an
mean,
option.
I love that you mentioned that, because that was a lot of the question in the comments. And so I love that that came out, because the ones that were asking, you know what I mean? Like, I love putting people in connection with one another. And so in that, you know, that's just supported by spirit. And so you being there in that capacity and that offering, I think is really wonderful, because I did see a lot of people that were in, you know, it's in, maybe it's connected to past life or not, but there was, I feel like that is really wonderful that you shared that.
Yeah, because it's grown out of the whole like library of QHHT sessions with all practitioners, because certain conditions are always associated with certain things. It's just a matter of knowing what that means to you.
Yeah.
So it's very different from like a medical checkup where you have this condition and it's done. It's like taking in consideration what choices you have made, what decisions you've made, who's in your life, what's going around you. I mean, it's a holistic picture and a way of you healing yourself, just by virtue of just knowing how to tap into yourself and learn how to heal.
So for all the people that were asking questions about, did I have this past life, specific questions like that, what would, if they can't have, if they don't have access to a past life regression, what would you speak to that? What would you offer them, if anything?
You know, what I would say is, one of the lessons we can learn through regression and through hypnosis and through understanding the deeper knowledge in ourselves is the fact that we are powerful, we have full control, we can manifest anything we want at any time. It does take a little bit longer here, but if you set your intention to, example, have a session or, you know, anything you want, if you say, thank you so much for giving me the ability to have a session and find out more about who I am, those means will come to you. And that sounds fluffy and all that, but it is the case that, you know, cost is always an issue with practitioners, you know, but in the grander scheme of things, when you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on medical treatments and medications throughout the entire course of their life, and one session could be like the cost of a month of medication, or, you know, a pillow for your hospital bed. I mean, it's kind of weighing and looking at it from that perspective. It's like, how much are you willing to take control and harness who you are and be open to this world of like limitless knowledge and possibility.
Yeah, I love that. And that was my hope in not being able, obviously, to answer every single question. We never can, but in that, still getting answer. And in this conversation, if you go back and you listen, there's something there for each and every one of us. There is. And in that, it can lead us to, you know, just, you know, making the next connection with the right person or whatever that looks like. We're never not seen and heard, you know, and so I would hope, and that's always my intention, that everyone is left with knowing that. So, and flowing, sharing that, you know, that happened to her in an online regression, and, you know, it was very painful. So that's, you know, it's so unfortunate that those things happen. And I loved that by connecting with Jason, it was to offer the education around it, and, you know, not only being the demonstration that he is, and the ethics and the integrity he has around the practice, that goes without saying. I knew that before I actually met him. And in that, just the sharing that is, I just think you've captured so many beautiful things for so many people in the comments, the chat, just really acknowledging
it should also go with saying that, finding someone that you really trust and connect with is important.
Yes.
I saw a couple of comments. I've been trying not to watch, no offense, but I wouldn't pay attention to the conversation. But but someone was asking about, I have trust issues.
Yeah.
How am I going to find someone to do hypnosis with? And to be completely honest, I mean, I think we all have some trust issues, whether if we don't with other people, I think most of us have trust issues with ourselves. And so that is kind of your first step to really opening up to who you are, and also having an experience, with a practitioner who practices hypnosis, because it's all about your mindset and walking into a session. And it's also about that practitioner. So it's important to do the research and not just to connect with someone who lives down the street from you, because you have no idea. So my recommendation would be, visit their website, see, what type of videos they do, if they do videos, so that you can get a sense of their energy, speaking with them on the phone. It's because it's important that you have that connection. And if you don't trust a practitioner or really don't feel like a connection with them, it's not going to happen for you. So, and it's not to say that practitioner is bad, but we have that ability to pick up on energies. And if you just don't feel like that person's the one, as a practitioner, I don't take offense when people, well, it's hard not to, but
yeah.
if they don't feel that vibe, it's like, it's a waste of their time and it's a waste of mine.
Yeah.
And the reverse is true.
I'm excited to share with people. So we have an announcement, and Jason has so graciously offered to do a free workshop that I will be hosting via Zoom. It will be taking place on, and I'm going to put all of this into a little video. I'm going to put it onto my community tab. It's going to be a free workshop on, which one are we going to do first? The how to meet your spirit guides? Is that the one we're doing first?
We could. Or
which?
It seems like a lot of people are interested in exploring the past lives. So
okay,
I mean, that might be a good.
You tell us which one do you want to do first, because we'll do all of them. But which one?
Past lives? Intuition says that past lives are important.
Perfect. I love it. So this is a gift for all of you. And for anyone that asked a question, there's an opportunity, and it's not a past life regression. It is a more on, actually, Jason, you tell us. What is it?
So it's a group hypnosis. It is not QHHT, but it is the exact hypnosis that Dolores Cannon used with people in order to help them kind of just get a taste of what QHHT can do. So it's really visualization based, and just giving you glimpses of what you could have experienced in a past life. I would say, it takes an open mind. It takes, being open to the experience. But it's a series. We'll go through some relaxations. We'll practice a little bit in terms of visualization and what you see, and share about it. And then after that, we'll do as much as possible online, and completely safe. You won't be experiencing horrible things or any of that firsthand. It's a lighter state of trance, but it would be essentially like the first step in kind of your journey. If you've never had hypnosis before, if you're skeptical, I'd ask, don't come in with a skeptical mind. Just be open to the experience and see what comes through. And it could be an amazing step on your journey, or first step.
I love it. That is so beautiful to make that contribution. Again, it's going to be free. We have room. I know that there's a lot of people that have showed interest already, just because I shared a little bit. And so in that, we have room for 100 people. I will be actually 98 because Jason and I count as the other two. But there will be, I'm going to put it in the description. I'm going to put it after the live is over. I'm going to put the email address. Actually, the email address, let me focus, is thehealingmediumworkshop@gmail.com. If you want to reserve a seat for that, you need to send an email. We will then send you the Zoom link. It's taking place Thursday, August 25th. So next Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And it'll be, would you say, about a 2-hour block, just to give people an idea of how long they'll...
Yeah, I mean, I usually talk a little bit about, what we're going to be doing and how it relates to QHHT, and, just letting you know what's going to happen. I will say up front, if you do want to come, it's really super important that you're in a place where you can, a quiet space where you won't be interrupted, where you could essentially fall asleep, even though that's not our goal, but a place where you feel safe and you don't have to worry about distractions. Especially, do not drive while doing this or operate any heavy machinery.
Yeah.
Anything like that. It's happened. Trust me. It's just, this is your time to spend with yourself and get to know yourself without judgment, in a safe place, and just coming in with that loving energy, open heart, no judgments. You're free to share whatever you wish. I mean, it's a positive experience, and it connects with other people too. So
beautiful. And then I did put your email for the workshop. Email would be thehealingmediumworkshop@gmail.com. If you do want to get in contact with Jason for a one-to-one kind of work in his offerings, he does have his website, which if someone could repost that in the chat would be wonderful.
I will be very transparent. I'm still working on my website again. So.
Your website is beautiful. And websites are a work in progress.
It's a work in progress.
They can evolve. Yeah, they can evolve.
So if you
and
can't
change.
find something, just email me or anything. I love answering questions. So please.
And what is your email?
It's jason@jasonqhht.com.
jason@jasonqhht.com.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. And yeah, we'll put the rest of the details. The date again is Thursday, August 25th at 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It'll be about a 2-hour commitment, and we would ask that you, unless of course there was a emergency or some reason that you had to leave, then obviously if you could stay for the whole thing would be wonderful. I do have a feeling that we will be doing more than just the one. And Jason, I would love to have you back. Thank you so much for joining us and all of the information that you shared. And yeah, I hope it was as good for you as it was for us. So thank you.
No, this is good. So I'm glad I could share.
It's wonderful. And thank you everybody for coming. Me. Yep, you're welcome. And all the chat family, thank you all so much. I appreciate you all, and yeah, we will see you soon.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good night. Jason, stick around. Don't leave. Bye, everyone.